You have the floor, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Welcome back, Mr. Camby. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council.
I hope you had a good break and are ready to proceed.
Because you are poor, I did not have a good one. I only had tea.
I hope the tea was very enjoyable.
It has sugar.
Can I just remind you that you're still under oath? We will address your arrest and detention, and then we'll address the issue of your release and the impact of that, and then we should conclude. So prior to the break, you told us that Lang Tombong Tamba came to your residence, took you to State House, where you were stopped from climbing up the stairs, as you would normally do. And you described what that particular soldier was carrying, and the fact that he stopped you from going upstairs, and so you stayed downstairs. I believe that's where you stopped.
Correct.
Can you tell us what happened after that?
Well, barely 5 minutes. While I was standing down there, Sana Sabali arrived with Sadib Hydra in their respective vehicles, with 2 other vehicles following them, carrying their guards. A batch of soldiers following them, like they've been doing before. Wherever they move, they go with those soldiers. Once they arrive, the soldiers got off the vehicle, they surrounded me, everybody pointing their gun at me, and Sana Sabal came to me and said, he gestured and said, get into that vehicle. That is his own vehicle. Without a word, I walked to his vehicle, the front seat, I opened the door, got into the front seat, and they drove off.
Did he say anything to you at that point in time?
Only get into that vehicle.
Where did you drive off to? Or where did they drive off to, rather?
Well, I only knew that they were going to mile 2 when we got out of Banjul, and then I saw them branch off to mile 2.
What happened when you arrived at mile 2?
Well, I was handed over. The commissioner of prison was called. It was then Antu Sedi, the late Antu Sedi was acting, and he was called, and they opened the gates, went inside, they opened the prison cells, and I was locked up in one of the cells at security wing, the maximum security wing, number 4.
Before you were locked up in security wing number 4, were you told why you were being arrested?
Negative.
Did the prison officers do anything to you prior to taking you to security wing number 4?
They didn't do anything to me.
When they took you to security wing number 4, you said they placed you in a cell, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you describe to us the conditions at security wing number 4, including the cell that you were placed in?
The conditions, I don't think I can describe well enough. I don't have that English language knowledge to be able to explain the deplorable conditions of that place. The cells are very small, and they only had plank, wood, this red timber, as the bed. And these are placed on 2 block walks. They just have a brick walk here, and then place the plank on them, and that is supposed to be your bed. And they also have a plastic bottle, covered plastic bottle, which was supposed to be my restroom at the corner, and 2 very dirty blankets. You know, when I was a child, there used to be this type of blankets with hair, the hairy ones. And that's what was given to you, 2 of them. One was supposed to be the bed sheet and the other one to cover yourself with. And looking at my size, when I lie on that bed, my leg touches the other side of the cell. And when I'm coming down, sometimes my leg hits the so-called plastic bottle, which is supposed to be my restroom, because you're not allowed to go out at night because you're locked up and the officer goes away with the keys.
Was that plastic bottle known by a particular name that you're aware of?
They call it the chamber pot. Whatever that means, I don't know, but they call it the chamber pot.
So you told us that you were placed in this cell, and you've described the cell. Were you allowed to go outside of your cell in the beginning?
I was not allowed to go out. And the only time I go out is when I need to empty that chamber pot. I go out under escort, go to the toilet, empty the chamber pot, do what I want to do, take a shower if I feel like it, and then clean the chamber pot up, bring it back into my cells, and get locked up again.
How would you describe the food that you were given at Mile 2?
I won't even give it to my horse. The kind of food they're giving us. The cherry, in the afternoon lunch will be rice, and the stew is something like, when they put the sauce on the stew, if you use your hand to eat, for example, all you find underneath is water, and they will divide one bonga fish between 3 people. They'll cut it into 3 pieces. So if you're lucky, you can have the middle and the tail, but once you have the head, all you see is the bonga fish, the eyes opening at you like that. So there's nothing there at all. And at night, in the evening, around 6 o'clock, they will bring the dinner, which is cherry, usually. And this cherry, the same thing. All they do is boil bonga fish and use in the soup to put on the cherry. And that's what we are given, nothing else. Once in a while, they'll be cooking what they call pap. I don't know what is that from, because I don't think that's couscous. I don't think that's also millet. I don't know where they get it from, but this is the kind of food they're giving us.
You described the cell that you were in, but I want to focus on the door itself. Can you describe the door and whether or not there was any netting, for instance, to prevent mosquitoes from coming in?
The cells are like cubicles, and this cubicle on top, just like the warehouse, the small hole they put there for ventilation, and there was no mosquito gauze there. The door itself is metal plate, halfway metal plate down, and the top part is just metal road, BRC sort of, open. No mosquito wires, nothing. It's just open like that. So I was using my towel to cover it.
While you were in prison, well, let me rephrase that. You told us earlier that you had sustained certain injuries while you were in Liberia. I want to find out if when you were in prison, what your medical condition was like at the time.
When I was in prison, the medical condition got aggravated because I was going through physiotherapy. Mrs. Ndao at the RVTH then was doing this thing for me, plus her assistants, Binta Fati and other people, Binta Fadera. Yes, they were giving me physiotherapy on a weekly basis because in Liberia, it's not only the broken leg that I sustained. When I jump on one side to avoid the shell from hitting me on the chest, I sustained what the doctors call a whiplash injury. Whiplash injury. And this injury affected here. And also, some fragment got into my neck here. The mark is still there, and the fragment is still in there. So once in a while, my neck gets stiff. I get all this pain down my left side. I can't do anything with my hand. And if I sit down for a long time, my foot gets swollen. If I walk for a long distance, my foot gets swollen. If I stand for a long time, it gets swollen again. But all that was not considered. I still was made to lie down on that hard plank, which aggravated the whiplash injury on my neck. And I had to smuggle a note out to my wife, who was a nurse at the RVTA, and they got me a collar, a neck collar. That's what I was carrying. I was getting better until when I got into that cells, and no medical treatment, nothing for the first days. They were not even allowing visitors. Even the Army medical team was not visiting us at that time.
In fact, that's something I wanted to touch upon, whether you received medical treatment inside the prison facility itself. But from what you've said, in the early days, you weren't even allowed that. Is that correct?
The early days, we are not even allowed that. There used to be this man called Sar, a very good person. He was so good to us that we even thought they might arrest him. He was from the gendarme and he's in the Army medical team. He comes around just formality's sake. If you have headache, he gives you paracetamol. If you have but major injuries like mine, like RSM Jang's, there's nothing he could do anything about, because he doesn't have the capacity to do anything for us. So he only passes by and say, well, sorry sir, there's nothing I can do. And we understood. So that's how it was bad. That's how bad it was.
You told us about your medical injury. What was the condition of RSM Jeng?
RSM had injury. We had a military exercise. During those days, we conduct live firing exercises in the bushes in Kiang. And this particular exercise, RSM had an accident with a vehicle, and he sustained serious neck injury. And he was also suffering from that. He was using neck collars as well. But all those things were not taken into consideration when we were locked up.
You said that you didn't have contact or visit from your family in the beginning, and you managed to smuggle a note to your wife sometime during your imprisonment. Can you tell us about that? How did you get a note to your wife, and what was the note about?
Good. As military officers, you're not only taught tactics and military science only, you also, like me, I did my civil affairs, and I know how to persuade people. And there was this particular prison officer who was very, very good to the detainees, even though he had a relationship with Jammeh, very close relation to Jammeh. The surname is Bojang, and he's supposed to be Jammeh's uncle, his younger brother of Jammeh's mother. But he was so good to us, and I just don't know, maybe because of that, the other prison officers or commissioners are afraid to stop him from helping us. He comes, we give him notes to our families, and then they'll give him whatever we want, like provisions, food, or whatever, and he'll bring it back to us. And this is the same guy I used to give a note to my wife, explain my situation to my wife, and then they had to seek permission to see me from the council, because at that time, nobody, only the council members can give permission, and they give it in the form of a note that you bring it to the prisons, and they bring you out to one office. You meet them for a few minutes in the presence of a prison officer. You cannot even discuss anything, secret. The prison officer will be sitting down here, looking at you in the face, while your wife or your parents or so are sitting next time, talking to them. So it was like not beneficial. The only benefit there is at least you saw your family member.
Do you remember how long after you arrived in Mile 2 prison that you were able to smuggle the note to your wife?
I can't remember exactly. I can't remember.
But do you know if it was a matter of months as opposed to days?
Of course, it's a matter of months.
So as a result of Mr. Bojang's good deed, the note was sent to your wife. Did your situation change in Mile 2?
Not immediately. But later on, I started being really stubborn with them. When it is time, when they started releasing us to get fresh air, they call it, they will open the gate, the cells for you, you come out, fresh air, and then go back in. When they started doing that for us, I started becoming real stubborn with them, the prison officers, and when they say it's time to go in, I refuse. I say, I'm not going. Get the military to come and shoot me, but I'm not going in. I'm not well. So because of that, and a whole lot of things happened, and the reports went to State House one time that they got information that Kambi wants to escape with Press Jany. So a whole contingent came from State House. We were just sitting down playing our Scrabble. All of a sudden, we saw the towers full of soldiers. And they opened the door, came inside, and the soldier who stood over me said, he started laughing. I said, what happened? He said, well, we received information that you and Press Jany were about to escape. I said, well, here I am, playing my Scrabble.
So following that, did anything change in relation, as a result of your medical condition, did anything change in relation to your bedding or your food or anything like that?
Yes, later on, I think because of our insistence that we are human beings, we should be treated properly, and with some of us being a little bit stubborn in, with other things combined, they decided to be a bit humane with us. And they have a procedure they call, I don't know, they approve, they say the medical doctor at the, or the medical team at the prison service will look at your condition and approve what they call high protein diet. High protein diet. I don't know what that high protein diet means, because what they do is they stop you from eating the normal food they cook for everybody. They'll cook special, they call it special one. If it is stew, they'll put one piece of meat. I suppose that is the high protein that they call. And that's what they give you. Then, as that continued, I was able to have more communication with my wife outside through this gentleman who is very good to me, and all of us, in fact. And in the end, I think my wife involved some doctors. Dr. Jones is one of them, I think. I will not be exactly so because I was not outside, but he was my doctor, so I suppose maybe he was the one informed. And message, according to my wife, message was sent to the council about my condition. And instruction was passed for them to send me a mattress in the cells. So I received 2 small mattresses and 2 small pillows. So that's when my condition started changing a bit.
You told us that you were placed in security wing number 4. Do you recall the names of some of your fellow detainees?
I can recall those people very, very close to me, those people I chat with at night when we get, we also had our own life there. We do our own thing, we read the Quran, we talk about things, we talk about activities, and we talk about the situation in the country at that time, even though we are inside. So people like Chongan, Ibrahim Chongan was there. We call each other Toma, Mama Cham, Captain Cham, Captain Sonko, he's in the US now, Faraba Sabali, who was our mess boy sort of. If you cannot do anything, you send him to do it for you. And because of that, they always leave him outside. So they don't lock him up. He's out there, moving around just like, if anybody needs anything while you are in your cells, he'll go and do it for you and bring it. So we have Major Sirif Mbai. He ended up in the police. Sirif Mbai. We have Sirif Gomez, Lieutenant Sirif Gomez. He was here before. And Keba Sise, former Director General NSS. He's late now. I can remember a whole lot of those people, but they were more than that because the cells were all filled up. But these are people I can recall right now. I know from here I can recall a whole lot of them, but these are the ones I can remember. Sorry, RSM Jeng was one of them. He was a key person with us.
During the time that you were all detained in security wing number 4, did anything happen to your fellow detainees?
You want me to answer that question under oath?
Yes, indeed.
I would have preferred you to ask me directly, did anything happen to you? Then I would answer that question.
If that gets you to the answer, did anything happen to you?
Thank you, Counsel. Yes, while in detention on the 6th of September, they came for us. The council members came for us, and a few of us were taken, tortured, beaten from the time they opened the cells. They will drag you onto the floor, kick, butt stroking you with the AK-47 butt, and their guards who were following them will be kicking and beating you up, drag them out, and then took them to another place in the security wing there. That happened on the 6th of September, I remember.
So I want to address that incident step by step. You said that the council members came. Do you recall around what time of the day they came to your cells?
The exact time, no, but it's in the small hours. They came, opened the doors, and then I could see them because my cell was located at a place where when I stand on my bed, I can look through that ventilation hole and I see everybody who is coming through the main gate.
So can you tell us who you saw?
So I saw Yankuba Toure, I saw Edward Singate, I saw Peter Singate, I saw Sana Sabali and Sadibu Haidara with their guards. They all came in and they started opening in fact, before they opened the cell, they always asked, who is here? So if you mention your name, it looks like they had their own list with them or who they wanted to really deal with, because my cell was very close to the door. And when they rushed in, the first soldier who moved my towel and said, who is here? I said, it's me, Captain Kambi. He put my towel back and said, sorry, sir, and left.
Do you recall who that was?
Yeah, his name is Njai. They call him Njai. Njai Ponkal or Njai what? But I can still recognize him because I know when I'm going to work these days, I used to pick him around the Brookfield Johnson and give him a lift to go to work.
I just wanted to clarify one point before we continue. You mentioned that this occurred in the small hours. What do you mean by that?
Well, when I was going to school, my English teacher, Musasi, the late Musasi, told me the small hours are the late hours from 1 a.m. onwards. So this thing happened around that time. It's not before 12 o'clock anyway. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So after Njai Ponkal came and asked who was in the cell, and then you responded, and then he moved on, what happened next?
He said, sorry, sir, and left me alone, and they proceeded to the next cells. That's when they started taking out. First was Mamacham or Chongan, I can't remember, but one of them, or RSM. I can't know the sequence, but these are the three people they concentrated on. Got one out, kicked, beat, do everything to them, drag them out, and then came back for the next one, and then the next one.
Let's start with the first person. You don't recall who it was, but when they beat that person and dragged that person out, were you able to hear anything? Were you able to see anything at that time after they dragged them out?
Well, I was not able to see anything, but I heard firing outside. I mean, with my military background, it's like a mock execution type. You take somebody out and then you fire, pam, 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 you come back and say, who is next? We finished with that one, who is next? Then take the next person out. There was firing where they took them.
And you mentioned 3 individuals. Did the same thing happen to each one, essentially? Did the same sequence of activities happen?
Anytime they take a person out, there's this firing, come back and say, we finished this one, next one, come. So what happens outside, I don't know whether the sequence is the same, but from the cell until they get out is the same, because they open your cell, drag you to the floor, and drag you out, kicking you, and hitting you with the butt of the gun.
Did you hear these gunshots on 3 separate occasions? Is that correct?
Well, Well, I can't say 3 separate occasions, but there were gunshots all the time. They take somebody out, and it's not only one gunshot. It's just like a burst or somebody will be firing semi-automatic, pam, 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 pam.
You mentioned Chongan, RSM Jeng, and Mamad. Can you just tell us their last names and whether that's actually correct? Their first names and last names.
Captain Mamad Cham, RSM Babukar Jeng, and Ibrahim Chongan.
After that happened, after they took all three of them, can you describe to us what happened next, from what you could see?
From that time, I couldn't see anything because they locked us up, and then that was the end of it. They went out. I don't know what happened next.
Did you see the three individuals again that night? The three individuals that they took out?
Negative.
What did you think happened to them at that time?
Dead.
How did that feel, believing that your colleagues were taken outside and killed?
I was not only, it did not only create anxiety, but mad. I was really mad that this thing is happening, because as far as I am concerned, nobody has done anything that is worth even beating, much more killing.
What could you observe in terms of the impact on your fellow detainees? How did everyone react? How did various people react to what had occurred?
Well, this is quite interesting, because, like we say, people have different levels of controlling stress or accommodating it, and some of them, I wouldn't blame the late Keba Sise, the director of NSS, because of his age, he collapsed almost, and Samsidin Sar, yes, Samsidin Sar also was like, he went off, because he was sitting at only one corner of his cells, and if you talk to him, he'll be like, huh, huh, something like that. He was like not out of his senses completely, and it took a lot of convincing from the prison officers and from us, especially myself and Press Jan. We were helping him out. We trying to, anytime we are let out of the cells, we try to make sure he eats something, or we'll give him juice and he will not take it. So that's the effect of on some of our guys there. However, nobody blows your own horn, but I didn't care in the end, because if it was that was coming, let it come. So I was not even worried. I didn't care. I was walking around, and my colleagues, some of them were saying, "You, nothing worries you." I said, "But my conscience is clear. I've not done anything, so I'm not even worried. Let them come and do whatever they want to do."
Did you see your fellow detainees that were dragged out? Did you see them again?
Yes, on another blessed Friday, we were playing our normal Scrabble, because in the end, when I got that facility to have rest, continuous rest, and Press was with me and some other guys, we were sitting having our normal Scrabble. All of a sudden, the door cracked. The padlock, we had a padlock cracking hard, and then prison officers rushed in and rushed all of us into our cells immediately. He said, "Look, we have this thing from the doctor that we need to rest." He said, "No, but we have a special event coming." They rushed us into our cells, and like I used to do all the time, I stood on my bed looking into that hall. Then I saw Sana Sabali and Sadibu Hydra, hands tied behind them like that, escorted Edward Singate with a pistol on Sana's head like that. Alaji Martin was also with them, with Edward, and they moved them to the cells where they took our colleagues. But prior to that, they opened the cells and brought our 3 colleagues and locked them up with us again. Most people didn't see them, but when I was standing on my thing, I saw them coming. So that's when I knew that, oh, these people did not die. Prior to that also, this is something, I'm not going to name names, but some prison officers, like I say, were very good to us. Somebody somehow, a day before that happened, this is on a Thursday, told me, your colleagues are not dead. So I knew they were not dead from that day, but not before. I thought they were all killed, because that's where the gallows is of the prison. Gallows is where they kill people, where they hang people. So that security wing number 1 is just next to the gallows. So I thought they were all dead until on this Thursday I saw, this guy told me that no, they are not dead. Then Friday, they brought them back. So I said, oh, so nothing happened to them.
So how did you feel when you realized that they were still alive?
I was very, very, very happy. Nobody will imagine that we'll be happy in that condition, but that day was like, I had a freedom, I had my freedom. I was very happy that my colleagues are with me.
During your time in prison, were you ever charged with a crime?
Yes, during my stay there, I was charged. And I was the only person from the typical military wing that was charged for a crime I never committed. When Sana arrived, they were preparing Sana's charge sheet, to take him to, for a court martial. All of a sudden, 2 CID officers, one Mr. Bojang and another Banyas Ba, Mam Bojang and Banyas Ba. They always come, they were investigating Press Chanya at that time also, because I think Press also was also charged, but not court martial. But when they used to come, take him out, take statement, bring him back, all of a sudden I saw my name included. They also came for me, took me out to the prison officer's office, and Banyas Ba, one of the police CIDs told me, we're here, we had information that they found uniforms in your car, and the intention was to give those uniforms to ex-soldiers to counter coup. And that's why we're here, we're charging you for treason, and you're going for court martial. I told him, fine, do your job. He looked at me and said, are you not worried? I said, Banyas, if you are a small boy in this service, I'm not a small boy. I know what treason is, and I know what I did and what I didn't do. So you can go ahead, charge me treason or double treason if you want. He looked at me again, he said, look, Mr. Kambi, your case is very serious. You see, we have even written it with red pen. I mean, I think he was stupid, because I knew that all cases are written in red pen, even in that police station. When you report a case there, it's written in red pen. So maybe he thought I didn't know that. So I was not worried. I told him to go ahead and do whatever he wants to do. That's how I was charged for treason, and a date was set for my court martial. And my court martial day, Dr. Njai, who was also detained, I forgot to mention his name, Dr. Njai, they call him Pacha, is Dr. Malik Njai, was also charged. I don't know what he was charged for, but we went to the same court with Sana Sabali. When they are doing Sana's court martial, I was also court martial the same day with Dr. Njai.
Where was the court that you were taken to?
There used to be an area they call Officers' Mess opposite the Fajara Barracks on the seaside area, so we're taken there for this court martial.
Can you tell us what happened at your trial?
Well, they mentioned the charge, I denied the charge, and the prosecutor said, no, everybody cannot be wrong, so they called their witnesses, and those witnesses are still serving in the government now. They were manipulated, because I didn't see eye to eye with those witnesses. They called to say, I had uniforms and I want to give them to ex-soldiers. I went to Mandinaba Johnson, because we had a checkpoint at Mandinaba. And as Chief of Staff of the State House, I used to go around the checkpoints to make sure that soldiers are all at their points. I actually went to Mandinaba, yes. But this guy, I think he did not get his information right. They brought him as a witness, and two of them came. One says, I went to Manilaba at 9 o'clock p.m. And when the second witness came, he said, no, I went there at 10 o'clock p.m. So the judge advocate, who is a Nigerian, looked at them and said, look, are you people lying or is this the truth? Because I can't believe a word you people are telling me now. So the judge advocate says the case is dismissed and I have to be acquitted and discharged together with Pacha.
After you were acquitted, did you go home?
That's the interesting bit. Dr. Njai's family came, my family came with my car. Dr. Njai's family came with their car. Dr. Njai was allowed to go home. Once I moved towards my car, my wife was waiting. The late Alma Momane went aside. I think he made a call or what. And he came back to me and said, no, you cannot go home. So I was rearrested, even though I was discharged, acquitted, and discharged by a court martial. They took me back to prison. From that day, I didn't go home until after the elections of 1996.
Do you recall the date when you were released?
The exact date could be around maybe 3rd of February 1997, because this is when they have already become presidents and ministers and whatever. That was the time they released me. I was the last person among senior military officers to be released, and the longest serving as well, because I also served 2.5 years for nothing.
So you were released on the 3rd of February 1997. Do you recall the date of the court-martial decision?
No, I can't remember the date of the court-martial, because that time, I want to be honest with you, I was so angry. I did not care about anything. So when they come, they just take me out and bring me back in. So I didn't care about anything. So dates, I can't remember.
When you were finally released, were you released unconditionally or were you released with conditions? How did that release occur?
When I was finally released, they came. They were releasing people, released everybody. I was the only one left almost. Senior military officers, yes. I was the only one, senior military officers. When they came to, they don't even tell you you're going to be released. They only come and say, come and answer. So when you come out, you leave everything in there. You don't even know you are released, or you don't. They come and answer. When you go to the prison officer's office, they said, you are being released today. I said, well, that's good. But you have to be on bail. Your own case is different. You're going to be released on bail. I told him, on bail for what? He said, well, that's the instruction I received. This is Mambojang. He was a CID officer. He's from Brufut. I said, well, it doesn't matter, whatever the bail is. So I had to call my brother, Usman Job, then customs officer, senior customs officer, and Usman Job, when he came, he told them, look, even if the bail is 1 million, I'll sign it, but he won't spend the night here today. So that's how Usman Job signed the bail, and I was released with Usman Job.
For how long were you on bail?
I'm still on bail, because nobody ever came back to me to say your bail is gone. I'm still on bail.
So you were finally able to go home after spending over 2.5 years in prison. How did it feel to be at home for the first time in such a long time?
Like I say, I went to a level where nothing worries me again. So it wasn't like anything new, because I had already smuggled a note out to the then consular, the embassy here, explaining my situation, and my family had to go there, and they were given asylum in the US. My wife, my kids, and my wife's family, all of them were given asylum by the US embassy here. So nobody was left here, only me. So they were all in the US, because they left since '95. So I was alone at home. Nothing worried me, because I got used to loneliness also in the cell, so it didn't bother me at all. So there was no difference. The only difference was I thought I was out of that confinement. And got myself into another confinement because you are out, you say you're free, but everywhere you go, the NSS guys are following you. Even when I go to the cobblers, as a village boy, our parents will tell you, take this one to the cobbler and make sure you tie this one to your waist. And so even if I go to the cobblers, looking back, I will see an NSS personnel pretending to be buying Coca-Cola in a shop, all monitoring me every day. One day I had to be mad with this guy because this is somebody I know. He lives in Brikama. He was assigned to be following me. One day I was so mad with him, I had to confront him. I said, the next time I see you behind me, I will kill you and go back to mile 2. So that's when it stopped.
Did they ever inform you why they were monitoring you, or do you know why?
I just don't know. I just don't know. I can tell you this, that people talk about me in my presence and they don't even know who is Kambi. So things have been said, Kambi is leading this, Kambi is doing that. They don't even know who is Kambi. I can give you a typical example. After my release, one day there was this traffic jam at the Denton Bridge. They were checking vehicles. I was in my car, wearing short trousers. I was following another vehicle, and then there's another vehicle, a lady inside it. The lady was so angry with the soldiers and the police, stopping vehicle, wasting everybody's time, and he started talking. Captain Kamiro Manafi, can you go stop? Stop. I was standing next to the lady. I look at the lady, I said, do you know Captain Kami? He said, yes. Hi, man maham Captain Kami, can you go stop, sir? Something like that. So things like that, I live with that. And my father used to tell me, there are people like that. Whether you do something or not, they will say things about you, and that's something, all you need to do is just guard yourself and don't do what people think you are doing. And that's what I've been doing all my life, and that's how I think I survived all these false accusations about me in the army and everywhere else.
After your release from prison, did you resume your military career? No,
I did not, because while we're in prison, they serve all of us with a letter which says ex-Captain Kambi, even though I did not receive a letter prior to that to say you are dismissed or you are retired or you are discharged. But we received a letter, ex-Captain Kambi. That is the arrest warrant, because they arrested us even before formalizing it. So this letter was just to say that you have been arrested and you are a security detainee. And it was addressed to ex-Captain Kambi. So whatever that means at that time. I did not resume work. When I was released, I was asked to go and see the president. Somebody escorted me, I don't know who they are. They said the president wants to see you. Myself and the former director of NSS, Kebasise, went to see him. And Kebasise, he said to me, look, I wanted to release you from the beginning, but the council never agreed. And I did not want to sacrifice 100 lives because of you, because it was going to bring a problem between me and the other council members, and there was going to be chaos. So it's better for you to stay in prison than release you and then we lose lives. I said to him, it's all fine, as far as I'm out now. Then he said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure they pay you your dues, and then I will look for somewhere to redeploy you. I said, fine. That was from him, Jamia, directly. Then I think a week later, I was called, I received a letter to say I'm appointed Principal Assistant Secretary at the Ministry of Interior. When I received the letter, I told him, look, I'm not a policeman, I'm military. I went to him, I told him I'm not a policeman, I'm a military man. He said, you see, you are stubborn. I'm telling you I'm to deploy, you are telling me, who are you to challenge me? I said, look, I am nobody to challenge you, but this is my life. I don't know police duties. And I'm not an administrator. He said, well, you go there and help Major Bojang, who was then the minister, Mamadou Bojang, who was then the minister. Go and, this is how he put it, go and help Mamadou Bojang straighten that ministry, because there are a lot of things going wrong in that ministry. So then I accepted when he said that.
I just wanted to clarify one thing before we continue. You mentioned that the arrest warrant that you received, which was addressed to ex-Captain Camby, was signed. Do you recall who signed it?
All the letters were signed by Sana Sabali.
And do you recall the date of it or the year?
I can't recall the date or the year.
So I'll just move on to your time, your career when you were working at the Ministry of Interior, assisting there. Can you tell us what you did after that?
Well, my appointment was Principal Assistant Secretary, because that time in the government, a captain's rank was equivalent to a grade 10, they call it. So Principal Assistant Secretaries were grade 10 then, and then my appointment was Principal Assistant Secretary and the coordinator of the National Drug Control Council. I was the coordinator. There was a UNDP, DCP project, United Nations Drug Control Program. They had a project with the Ministry of Interior controlling drugs, narcotics. So I was made coordinator, because they said they wanted an ex-serviceman in that position. So I was Principal Assistant Secretary and National Drug Control Coordinator. And Dr. Tala Jallo, wife of Tatin Baji, former IG, was my deputy coordinator. And as I was occupying that post, also doing my job at the ministry, I was also the desk officer for the prisons, not knowing that I'll be, controlling that prisons later on. I was the desk officer for the prisons, immigrations as well. I was responsible for signing. If the immigration department needs passports from the central bank vault, I was one responsible to sign after the Director General sends in his request. And prisons also, prisons committee visits at the prisons, I was responsible for that also. This National Drug Control Coordinating thing brought a big problem between me and the then minister, Bojang, because I was getting an incentive in addition to my salary. The drug control program bought an official vehicle, a Nissan Patrol, and they also told me that I should try and get an office space where they will sponsor everything, even if it is dilapidated. They were going to refurbish it, furnish it, and I can get my own team and then separate myself from the ministry. And this was going to be consist of custom officers, people from the CID department, and then we form what they call now the drug squad. This is where it all started. It was my baby. I started it. But it was then called the National Drug Control Council. Myself and Tala were running it, Tala Jallo. Then Minister Bojang was like, no, I can't understand this. My office was furnished by them. I had a sofa, I had printer, color photocopier. He did not have that in his office as a minister. So I think that all brought the animosity between me and him. One day he just got up and said, look, I don't think you are brought here as coordinator. You are here as Principal Assistant Secretary. I told him, you are the minister, whatever you want to do. Then Auntie Teres Teres Drame was permanent secretary. And it got to a level where he has been monitoring everything I do. I was also responsible for, as Principal Assistant Secretary, when the fuel coupons come, I distribute the fuel coupons. So one day he just called me and said, the number of fuel coupons you give me is not enough. I have a utility car at home. I said, look, coupons are for work. It's not for your personal business. And he got angry with me. He almost fought me that day. He went to the extent of pulling this thing up, sleeves. And people have to come between us. So he said, from now on, I'm going to make sure you are not coordinator. Then he wrote to the State House, or wherever he wrote to, I don't know. The following week, I saw Lena Manga Sanyang, who was then at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, reporting to office, say, she is now the coordinator. I said, fine. So I had to remain as principal assistant secretary. But the message got to the UN, and they wrote back to say, look, if we don't have a former military person or police person, somebody who has done service, the project is done for. They did not heed to their letter, and those people stopped the sponsor. Then I couldn't bear it. I looked for a job somewhere else, and I saw an advertisement on the papers about civil aviation, deputy head of security at the airport. So I applied for that job. I got the job. I passed the interview, but then because of the control Jammeh had over all the departments, they said they could not employ me until they get clearance from State House. So they had to wait for almost a month before they can get a clearance from the State House, because nobody was willing to go to State House and tell them, can we employ him? So they were only waiting for somebody to do it. So I had to use my own connections and then call somebody to tell them this is what is happening, and that's what's holding my employment. So when I got that job, I resigned from, no, I didn't even resign. I left Interior because I was on contract.
Considering your testimony today and everything you've told us about what happened to you, I would like to know what your views and concerns are in relation to your victimization, as well as the mandate of the Commission, which is to accomplish never again. What are your views and concerns in relation to how the Gambia can move forward and achieve that?
First of all, if I were consulted about this commission, my view will be, let's get the perpetrators come, admit their deeds, and then we can get the victims, come reconcile with them, seek their forgiveness, reconcile with the victims, rather than calling victims first to narrate their story. Because when names are named, for example, one episode I watched here, names were named, and those people have kids. So those kids, when they meet with the kids of the person who the person says was going to kill him, or who the person says tortured him in prison, if those two people's kids meet in school, the kids knowing that this one wanted to kill my father or tortured my father, it may bring a lot of problems between them. So instead of reconciliation, it may bring something more than reconciliation. My preference would have been perpetrators to come and admit what they have done, since this is a reconciliation, it's not a trial. And I don't think I don't know your mandate, but maybe it's not to recommend for somebody to be locked up or to go to court. But if that is in your mandate, it's fine. If that is not in your mandate, then I would have thought we should have approached it in that way. But like I say, I didn't read your mandate. If your mandate is you're also going to recommend for people to be tried, then it's perfect. Going forward, I think what we need to do in this country, the never again slogan will never be achieved unless people are trained professionally. We must have proper training. People must know where to start and where they end. Everybody has a job description. If people's job descriptions are violated, if people go beyond their job descriptions, this is what happened. In the services, if we don't want things like this to happen, the service must be regulated. In the military, there is what we call regimentation. If there is no regimentation in the military, things will always go upside down. You'll see junior officers giving orders to senior officers like it happened in the past 22 years. A sergeant at the State House will not take orders from a major in the battalions because he feels he's answerable to Jammeh. So that turns things upside down. There must not be a special unit in the forces that are answerable to the president, because it brings problems. Those special units, even if they are sergeants and corporals and they think that they are higher than the lieutenant colonels and the majors and the captains who even recommended their posting into that position. So these are things we need to regulate. Regimentation, we must have it. Promotion must be based on merit. In the past, in the Army, what we do is we have promotional exams, even for officers. Before you move from second lieutenant to lieutenant, you must pass that exam. You must pass the lieutenant exam before you go to captain. You must pass that also before you go to major. The same thing with the junior NCOs. From Lance Corporal, we have what we call cadre course. This cadre course involves theory and also practical exercise. You go to the field, you do tactics. You do map reading. You do assault course and all kind of things. If you pass, then you promote to the next rank. But if that is abandoned and everybody is promoted based on who you know or who is in the office at that time or who is loyal to me, the army will never go forward, and this never go against slogan will be repeated. We'll have a repetition of it. And as far as I'm concerned, I've not seen any changes in that in the army yet, because we still have the bogus ranks that were issued out to by Yaya Jammeh to people who did not go through the courses. You cannot be a general, even though it's a political appointment, without going through some of those courses. We have seen people who were sergeant majors, they are now generals. I don't want to name names, but this is my view of the army at the moment. It's left to the president, it's left to the government, how they want their army to be. But as a professional, with my professional experience, this is what I think should happen. People must be promoted based on merit. The army must be restructured from up there down. If our army strength is brigade strength, you cannot have a rank more than a brigade strength structured rank. If our army is just one battalion, you cannot have a rank more than that, apart from the staff officers at the headquarters. But if we have major generals, we have brigadier generals, we have lieutenant generals, for an army that is only brigade strength, it will bring all these problems. And like I say, that is my view, and anybody can correct me if they want to, anybody can disagree with me too, but that is my view with my training and the way I see a way forward, so that there will be no problems in the military or other services. Once there is regimentation, a sergeant knows that I'm answerable to a staff sergeant. A lieutenant knows that I'm answerable to the captain. There will be no problems at all, because anything somebody does will now know where the instruction came from and who gave the instruction, why did he give that instructions. I think so far that's my view of how we can go forward, and this never again slogan for you to achieve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Camby. Your views have given us a lot of information. It is indeed part of our mandate to make recommendations for prosecutions, but we're very grateful to you for your observations as well as your testimony today. So I thank you very much and hand over to the commissioners for additional questions. Thank you.
Okay, before the commissioners come, I have one thing, and that is like a request. If we don't call the right people here, we will not get the information we require. There are people out there like RSM Jeng and Mohamed Lamin Kasama, who was ADC to Jawara. So anything that happened around Jawara at that time, he is the right person to tell us, because he was the only one there as an officer. And RSM Jeng was the overall RSM of the whole army. Nothing happened without his knowledge. He knew all these things. So if they are not called here, it will be, you will not get some information from them.
Thank you very much, Council, and thank you very much, Mr. Camby, for your testimony. Before I turn to the commissioners, I have a very minor clarification to seek from you. At what point did you become aware of the firings on the 6th of September being mock executions? Because at one point you said you used the term mock executions when you were referring to events on the 6th of September. And then later on, you said mock executions. You became aware when you saw the individuals that you thought were executed, but they were indeed alive. So at what point exactly did you become aware of mock executions? Thank you.
This is when, like I say, a good prison officer called me to tell me that these people are not killed. That's when I knew that this was a mock execution.
Thank you very much. Yes, Commissioner Kinte.
Retired Captain Kambi, this is Commissioner Kinte. I remember you said when you were turned back at the bridge to report to the head of the junta, you did not go that way. I was a bit confused. You said you went home, and then later you reported you consulted your immediate boss, and later went to the State House, eventually drove to the State House. Can you throw light on which one went first, and like in particular when you were going to your boss, where you were there with some people, did you go together or you came in different moments but you converged there also? Please shed some light on that.
If you recall also, I said, I can't remember what happened that day, who I went with, who I didn't go with, but I can't remember going with anybody because I made it a point of duty when I realized what was happening. I don't go out with any officer. I don't move with anybody. I only move with my orderly, Ismaila Jane. So I wouldn't know exactly what, I can't recall, but I knew I was in control of that vehicle, GNA 10, and I can move with it anywhere during that period in the morning.
You said you went home. Did you first go home, then to your boss, or your boss then to the home? Because otherwise, from home, you went and dressed and left for Banjul. That's where.
That's clear. I went home and allowed the vehicle to drop the other officers, Jata and Wilson, and the driver came back, and that's when I went to see my boss. And then from my boss, I came back home to change dress into camouflage and drove to the State House.
Sorry, Commissioner Jones, you have the floor.
Commissioner Jones, thank you, Mr. Kambi. As part of our mandate includes reparations. You did say upon your release you were promised that your dues would be paid. Can you please confirm if these dues were indeed paid?
I didn't hear that clearly.
Our mandate includes reparations, and you did state that when you were released, you were promised that your dues would be paid before your appointment at the ministry. Can you please confirm whether the dues were paid to you?
Yes, the service, my service in the army, the pension was paid to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Jallo, Imam Jallo.
Mr. Kambi, things keep walking in my mind about the success of the 1994 coup. How is it that 4 lieutenants could so quickly make the entire armed forces of the Gambia collapse under their feet? Could you help to enlighten me about some of the reasons or some of the circumstances that led to this easy success? Thank you.
Thank you, Imam. I would not say the entire army collapsed. The army never collapsed. And just 4 lieutenants. In the army, lieutenants are not just. 4 lieutenants can convince their platoons because the lieutenants are the platoon commanders. The senior officers are at the army headquarters and they usually don't live in the barracks. So people who live together in the barracks are the people who can always come together and plan something and successfully do it. And if you are keen follower of military history, all the coup d'etats in the world here are never done by generals. They're done by junior officers, and then they bring generals and the senior officers to lead them. This is the situation in the Gambia also. It's not that the army collapsed, and it's not that the senior officers were useless or senior officers didn't know what they were doing. No, it's because they do not have direct interaction with the men. And where you don't have direct interaction with the men, the people who have direct interaction with them are the people who can manipulate them, are the people who can persuade them to follow them, do things they want them to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Carr?
Commissioner Carr, I have a question. When you were arrested, you were a young person, if I got your age right. How did young person, youth, sort of, to say?
No, I was not young when I was arrested.
I mean,
I was me.
Okay, thank you. I just want to know how did the arrest affect you and your family, particularly your wife and children, if you had any at the time?
It affected me seriously. It affected them tremendously. My wife collapsed several times. She is a nurse. She cannot stand. She couldn't stand all of these things. Most of the time when I'm taking for physiotherapy, the moment our eyes meet, she cries. She collapses. They will be carrying her out, and she was asthmatic at that time. So I even fear for her life. My kid was very young then. He was about 2.5 years, so he wouldn't know much. But my wife, my family at home in the village, they were all desperate. They were totally devastated, and people were like, they're going to kill him, he's going to be executed, because that's what they tell them. And it went up to the extent that even my household items were distributed. They were all shared within people. When I came out, I didn't find anything apart from a single TV, because everybody thought I was going to die, and this affected my family a lot. So what I did was I said, well, let me die and let my family survive. I had to smuggle a note out, explain my situation to the consular at the American embassy at that time, and they helped, looked into my family's affairs, and they give them asylum. So the whole family left the country and that was my sacrifice. If I'm going to die, let me die alone.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kambi, again, for your testimony. We really appreciate your appearance here. Council, do we have any arrangements for the afternoon before I make any announcement on that?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the arrangement, as was mentioned yesterday, is that we would have a witness to start at 2 p.m. So between the adjournment period and 2 p.m., we would again reset the system and test it. And we hope that our technicians would be able to deliver a quality and stable network for a Skype testimony, or a testimony via Skype by the witness. The witness is waiting. He is in the US, and hoping that everything would be okay for him to take the stand out at Rutgers University by 2 p.m. this afternoon, Gambian time.
Thank you very much, for that explanation. I do hope the technicians will do their best to make sure that we don't have any technical problems. And we would start sharp 2 o'clock. And if there are no further points or questions, meeting is adjourned. We meet here at 2 o'clock. Thank you all.